To a market insight for the week of September 11th through the 15th, 2023. And starting with our usual approach, our top-down approach, starting with the monthly. As we've been discussing for several weeks now, the monthly continues to look bullish. We got a strong rally, really a strong rally off of these lows, but it really started after we broke the supply line and bottomed in March. Got a strong rally off of the March lows, and we've gone up for 5 months straight. Little light demand up above, at resistance, so not surprising we got the pullback. And so after topping out in July at 46.34.5, we see last month approaches the August 2022 high at 43.27.5. We approached that, didn't quite get all the way down there. And then pushes back up and closes in the middle of the range. And note the heavy volume here. So the heavy volume and the mid-range close obviously indicates buying, right? But the heavy volume also indicates the presence of sellers, simply just due to the presence of high volume. So we want to think about that when we're looking at the lower time frames to see where is that selling and has buying really overcome it. We'll get there in a few moments. So far, the September month, this current month, is only traded for 1 week, so it's premature to base much analysis on this incomplete September bar. So far, we're just trading inside the August bar, but that's about really all we can say at the moment about the monthly, the current month. So let's turn to the weekly. Excuse me. So after hitting that confluence of resistance that we've talked about for several weeks, I won't go through it again, but in that 46.30.35 area, the weekly reacts down. And the first week of August sees a widespread down bar on increased volume, and that was bearish, right? The second week continues down on a little higher volume, but some shortening of the thrust. Excuse me, I'm having trouble getting my words out. It's hitting the demand line, so not a surprise, right? So still supply with some buyers attempting to stop the market at the demand line on that second week. And that's the demand line of the smaller uptrend channel. But buyers can't hold it the following week, and the demand line gets broken. And we see sellers step back in and take price down into the area framed by local support here at 43.68.5 and the August high, the higher time frame support, local support on this time frame, and then the higher time frame support of 43.27, and price came right into that area, painting a low at 43. And then on the fourth week of the month, on still fairly heavy volume, right there, buyers hold support. And then last week, August had pretty close to 5 weeks in it. We see the expected follow through of holding that support to the upside from the prior 2 weeks of holding this support. So then this past week, the first full week of September, we see it's a down week, closing lower than the prior week's close. Prior week closed up here, this week's closing down below. And so we call that a down week. And even though it's a down week, note that the range is narrow and it's inside the prior week's range. And the volumes also dropped off a little bit, suggesting supply has at least tired at the moment at this level. So from a weekly perspective, we again see a bullish chart, though we're also in a trading range. And with that in mind, we could easily come back down to the bottom of the trading range or approach the bottom of the trading range again. back down towards 43.50, possibly even going all the way down to the August 22 high at 43.27. Or we could also, see this as the market could see this as no supply and rally up over the 45.41 level here, the high of 2 weeks ago, and move back up towards 46.34. Wow, I've never been able to speak well on numbers. Let's take a look at the daily. So on the daily, we see the market encounter supply on the last few days of the prior week. Right? Now, it looks to me, just stepping back a bit before we get into the details of this, it looks to me like we're still trying to negotiate this access line here around 44.98, 4,500. Got it painted here in this dash line, the dash purple line. Resistance, resistance, driving through it, trying to hold support, resistance, coming back up, resistance, driving through it, and now we're going to see what happens to it. So the last few days of last week, we start to see shortening of the thrust. It began on, I think this was Wednesday, right, of last week, with some effort versus result on some reasonably good volume, on reasonably sustained volume there, good volume. And the shortening of thrust continued on Thursday and Friday of last week. And both Thursday and Friday had poor closes, and again on sustained volume and indicating supply. And that set the stage for Tuesday. We didn't have a trading day on Monday, really, because of the holiday, the US holiday here, the Labor Day weekend. But we see a drop, and then again, that's on sustained volume. And then the last few days, we're closing underneath the lows of the prior 2 days. I'm sorry, we drop underneath. I'm still talking about this Tuesday here. We drop underneath on sustained volume. We drop underneath these lows here, the lows of Thursday and Friday of the prior week. So we wipe out the buying that occurred there. We did that on Tuesday and sustained volume. And then Wednesday continued the downdraft with an increase in volume. See that pop up there. Note how the spreads widened and the close settled in the middle of the bar, but underneath the resistance here at 44.75 area, give or take. So supply came in for sure, but buyers are also attempting to hold the market. Then on Thursday, we put in the low of the week, dipping down underneath Wednesday's lows, but sellers weren't strong enough to continue to the push down. Buyers stepped in, and we see that heavier volume again. Buyers step in and push price back up above Wednesday's low and close the day off of the lows, right, on pretty good volume. And then Friday, we see a test of the 2-day low. We see a test of Wednesday's low. And then we close back on up mid-range on sustained volume, but we weren't able to get above that resistance. So buyers are attempting to hold in here, but so far we've only seen effort versus result and not really an ability to rally up and above that 44.76 level of resistance so that we can then negotiate higher. So for next week, so demand is there definitely, but supply is also present. And we have to see who's going to win out in this little struggle here. So if we start trading above 44.75 or 76 resistance early next week, I'd like to see it rally up to Wednesday's high around 45.03 and then break that and then move, a good close, we rally up, we got to get up into the high of Wednesday here because that's where we see the increase in supply that started. So we got to get above that too. And then if we can do that, obviously we then have 45, 41. And if there's real strength in here, we're going to move towards, may not get there next week if we're that bullish, but we start moving towards 43, 46, 30, 34. And I'd put a trend channel on here as well. And I think it would intersect in here as I'm sort of eyeballing it now. So that's the bullish scenario. And the one that I kind of favor here, but we've broken the daily. Let me just say why I'm more bullish than bearish here. We've broken the daily supply line. We've done that decisively. We did it decisively, not just in price, but we've also got a larger upwave than we've seen since that down wave began, right? So we should see at least an attempt to retest these highs, retest the late August highs. We may not get there. It's possible that this continues to be resistance and hold firm, but that's what I'd be at least looking for. But there's no doubt we've got supply from last week. So if the buyers are unable to hold last week's lows down here, that's the obvious support, right? Then we're likely to start making our way back down towards the 43.50 area and maybe even lower to test the August lows. In any event, that would be as I say on the weekly chart, go back up here for a moment, that would start to fill out this trading range in here on the weekly, complete it maybe, so to speak, if it needs to be completed. So that's the daily. Let's take a look at the major markets, the major indices, and you can see the break of the trend line here on the S&Ps, the slip down, sorry about that, but also on the Dow. They both decisively broke that supply line. Notice, however, that the NASDAQ has not, right? S&Ps and the Dow both moved outside of their downtrend channels, but the NASDAQ started to do that, but then this past week fell back inside. So next week, this is what I'm going to be watching. The key, I think, is going to be the NASDAQ, right? To whether or not we rally up higher or we start coming down. The highs of Thursday and Friday in the NAS have to be overcome here, and then for the markets to rally. So we'll see how that develops. Watch the NASDAQ. Now for next week, I want to apologize for the technical problems that we had on Thursday. I just couldn't get data from TradeStation, and the tech support goes home at 5 o'clock, I guess, down there. I couldn't raise them to see what the problem was. And it turned out it was a fairly simple thing. Fixed it the next morning by deleting some cache stuff or some files in the cache. Anyway, nothing you need to worry about. So we couldn't do it on Thursday. Sorry for the late notice. Sorry for all of that. We will make it up on Monday, this coming week, September 11th, this Monday at 4:30 p.m. And we're doing some swing trading stuff, some of the looking at the charts and determining whether or not it's a buy or a sell, or we want to stand aside. So good for everybody, not just swing traders, but focused on swing trading. We'll do that on Monday. And then on deep practice, we'll do our normal day on Thursday, September 7th at 8 o'clock. So we have you'll see me twice this week. Maybe that's not such a good idea, but you'll get me anyway. Deep practice makeup session on Monday after the close at 4:30, and then our normal deep practice on Thursday at our normal time at 8 o'clock. So have a great rest of the weekend, and I'll see you Monday right after the close. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.